did. At least to my mind, it has over 20 different meanings. In a narrow sense, when we talk about sanskar, we refer to rites, rituals, rites of passage, such as Daha Sanskar or Antim Sanskar, which is the final rites in Hindu religion. And when we talk about it often reductively, it is used as a sort of a signifier of character. So when we say achhe ya bure sanskar, vices and virtues that individuals have. And in a wider, perhaps more accurate sense, it stands for the psychological imprint of our thoughts, of our deeds, and of our influences. But what does that mean? Where do sanskars come from? In modern life, where there is such a plethora of influences that each one of us has, can the origin of sanskars be traceable at all? Does one have to believe in past life to believe in sanskars? Are sanskars entirely unknowable, subconscious, or can they be consciously imbibed and understood by us? Can we categorize them neatly into good and bad sanskars? And if we can, then can such a classification be universally acceptable? And perhaps is such a classification another tool to enforce caste hierarchy and patriarchy? And when I ask this, I'm obviously thinking of, amongst many other things, you are Anant Murthy's iconic novel Samskara. So given the shape-shifting nature of this word and this idea, I thought that the best way to begin this session might be to ask all of our speakers to take about a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, and tell us a little bit about what they think of when one speaks of samskara. What is their concept of sanskar? And I'd like Arundhathi to start, if she doesn't mind.
She minds.
She does? All right, well,
this mic is not very good, so let someone begin while I...
Yeah, we'll have to replace the mic. Alka ji, would you like to start? So one of you has to volunteer. Okay, great. Makarand then. Thank you.
Well, the word samskar reminds me of Anantamurthy's novel. First of all, it was published in 1965. And Anantamurthy was in England at that time, and his teacher, Malcolm Bradbury, told him, listen, you felt so deeply when you saw this film by Ingmar Bergman, The Seventh Seal, a film which was, I think, released in '57. So his teacher said, why don't you write about it? And Anantamurthy did. And then the book was translated by Ramanujan many years later, and the subtitle was Rights for a Dead Man. Now, that's where I want to make my first point, which is that what happens in this novel is that an anti-Brahmin, not a fallen Brahmin or a non-practicing Brahmin, but somebody who is deliberately destroying, whatever tradition he's inherited, for whatever reason, including fishing in the sacred pond, eating those fishes, drinking, he has a concubine, whatever, he dies. And these Brahmins of that Agrahara don't know what to do. But it's a false question, and you realize this only as the novel unfolds, because Chandri, who is supposed to be a lower caste lady, who was this dead man's girlfriend or partner, and who has also slept with the protagonist, whose name is Pranesh Acharya, this holy Brahmin, she has this amazing insight. She says the dead man has no caste. The corpse is smelling, it's rotting, and she cremates this dead man's rotting corpse all on her own. And I think that's the answer to your question about tradition and modernity and how samskaras mediate between them, which is that obviously we should carry on the good samskaras, those which enable us, which liberate us, which empower us, and we should certainly change the bad ones. Now, the second thing I wanted to say is that the word samskara also reminds me of Sanskrit, which also means refined, to make pure. And again, there's so much of an unnecessary debate over Sanskrit. Is it a dead language or whatever? the real question is different. Sanskrit and Prakrit are the two ends of every language. Prakrit, Prakriti ke anusar, things in their natural state, so to speak. And Sanskrit is what you do with it, how you refine it, acculturate it, purify it, make it better. And so, not just the dichotomy, but the dialogue between Prakrit and Sanskrit are a part of our daily lives and a part of the dynamics of every language. And so, what's really important for us is not to get trapped in these polarizing binaries, but have an intermediate hermeneutics which gives us the flexibility and power not to reduce everything that we see in India to these hostile and reductive political positions. And I hope we don't do that to this panel and to Samskara itself. Thank you.
Would you like to,
Can you hear me? Yeah. So you see, like Makarand started, in Sanskrit in particular, there are multiple meanings. It's very nuanced. And again, I'd like to also refer to the same writer, Ananthamurthy, when he defined the concept of dhwani and called it multiple meanings. In the same way, I personally feel sanskar. These are certain gunas with which we are born, and every person has a kind of their own sanskar with which, or the intangibles which are very much inherent in a person, and how they are shaped with nature and nurture. Our deep philosophical thought, our various philosophies, particularly the Vedantic thought and many other, and I'm not a philosopher, and I'm not really well versed, or I have not really interrogated or studied the principles of philosophy so deeply, but definitely looking at the cultural kind of development of poetry, which is very much an integral part and connected with the arts, I would actually like to take one aspect of sanskar, or how it was defined when Kalidas did it in the Raghuvansh. And just to say, to quote Kalidas in the Pratham Sarg of the Raghuvansham, when he says, Falanumaya prarambha sanskara praktana iva. In the time of one of the ancestors of Ram, Raja Dilip, it was said that whenever जब भी कभी कोई कार्य पूरा होता था, उसके बाद ही उसके बारे में पता लगता था, उसकी शुरुआत का अनुमान किया जाता था। ठीक वैसे ही जैसे हमारे जीवन में परिणाम स्वरूप के सामने आने से हमें अपने बीज रूप संस्कारों का एहसास होता है। So, sanskars actually, or these kind of, how should I say, the essence, in some ways, I'd also like to use the French word called jouissance, which is the spirit. So it is actually, a lot of it has to do with the unconscious, the subconscious, which also becomes how should I say, सूक्ष्म रूप से जैसे उसका, you come to see the formation of when the intangible becomes the tangible. That is the process of sanskar for me. And I see sanskar, because being a Sanatani, following the whole tradition also of being cultured into thinking that there are many lives that we lead. So it is through many lives that we have led that we also bring this tranche or this bank of inherent guna or sanskar in us, which as we grow older are also developed and shaped by the sanskars of the family in which we are nurtured, sanskars of our work practice. If I am working in the area of visual arts, the sanskars or the guna or the conscious and the subconscious or the representations of the artistic sensibilities is very different to say how a poet like Arundhati, her sanskars or in her work practice they would be different. So, you know, as Pragya rightly said, it's a real shapeshifter. So, sanskars for different practice, for different professions, for different beings are different because we actually are born with some, we develop some, and there is a constant process of evolution and change which happens, but there is an essence which is always constant. That's how I would, for me, what sanskar means.
Arundhati, would you like to?
I think Makarand and Alka have talked at such length. I'm going to choose to take a particularly idiosyncratic approach to this in terms of just how I respond to the word. For me, the immediate word that comes to mind, which has already been mentioned, is the word imprint, or even more fundamentally for me, inheritance. A cultural, spiritual inheritance, and the many subtle ways in which it seeps into one's bloodstream. A.K. Ramanujan talked about the fact that there was never a time when an Indian, no Indian, he says, is ever capable of remembering the first time he or she heard the Mahabharata. None of us can remember that because it was almost something that we imbibed at a time that we weren't even conscious. It seems to have been osmotically imbibed. That, for me, is a starting point, an inheritance that one is almost unconscious of or only partly conscious of. But then comes the most important part, which to my mind is about reclaiming your inheritance, choosing those strands of your inheritance that make deep sense to you, that resonate deeply with you, those aspects of your sanskar, of your inheritance that matter to you. For me, I just want to mention, since we have limited time, I just want to reflect on this in terms of 3 words that have been important in terms of personal reclamation for me. Growing up, watching my father perform some measure of his own puja, but largely having a father with whom one could discuss Vedanta, watching a mother who spent some time doing her spiritual practice, but was also capable of living with a certain natural wisdom. Watching this, I think I learned, as many of us do, that the faith that I had inherited was not one that needed in any way to be policed. It was a faith that existed, that was palpable and in abundant evidence. And it was a faith that seemed to allow me tremendous freedom. The freedom to inherit this wonderfully sophisticated tradition of non-dualism, a philosophical tradition. It also allowed me the freedom to have ostensibly 330 million gods and goddesses, to be able to choose one who was most suited to my taste and temperament, to be able to dismiss the whole lot if I chose, to be able to invent one of my own if I chose, and to still be someone who belonged deeply, unlicensed, but who belonged. The other word that has mattered to me deeply is the notion of descent, the fact that we are heir to these extraordinary traditions of descent. For me, a mistrust of hierarchy was something that I think developed very early in my life, but I was very gladdened and reassured to find that we have access to traditions of descent. So when I discovered for myself personally the Bhakti poets of the subcontinent, about whom I did an anthology recently, I felt I was in wonderful company that I was deeply grateful for, to find mystic poets who remind us that this God that we can imagine for ourselves is capable of being infinite and intimate, is capable of being divine and domestic, These are poets who reminded me that to ask for personal questions to ultimate answers is my birthright as a human being. So I think this for me has been an important aspect of my tradition, to know that it allows me the right to question hierarchy. This is an integral part of my inheritance that I'm deeply grateful for. And the last point that I'd like to mention is the fact that I am heir to a legacy, I believe, that allows me to look at tradition not in terms of either or, but that allows me to look at it in terms of the word and, that allows me to have a body and a mind and spirit, and that doesn't ask me to choose between one and the other. And here again, I felt deeply empowered by traditions of yoga, and I felt deeply empowered by the bhakti traditions that remind us again and again that the body, and the tantric traditions remind us of this again as well, that the body and the spirit are not antagonistic, that the body can in fact be a tremendous instrument in the path of self-understanding. This for me is hugely liberating, not to set up binaries between flesh and spirit, between the sacred and the profane. I feel deeply grateful for this legacy.
नमस्कार। संस्कार की बात है, और जैसा कि अभी प्रज्ञा कह रही थी कि संस्कार का अनुवाद आसान नहीं है, क्योंकि और भाषाओं के पास नहीं है। जैसे रूसी भाषा में पंखे के लिए कोई शब्द नहीं होता, वो वेंटिलेटर बोलते हैं। अंग्रेजी के पास घी के लिए कोई शब्द नहीं होता, वो बटर ऑयल बोलते हैं। वो इसलिए बोलते हैं क्योंकि वहाँ जब मक्खन निकाल लेते थे तो खराब नहीं होता था, उसे आगे ले जाने की कोई प्रक्रिया की आवश्यकता नहीं थी। यहाँ पर उसे टिकाने के लिए एक प्रक्रिया देखी गई, उसको आगे बढ़ाने के लिए फिर एक शब्द भी देखा गया। तो जैसे घी विशुद्ध इस संस्कृति से निकला हुआ रचा बसा और एक चीज को व्यक्त करने वाला शब्द है, उसी तरह से संस्कार भी है। और जैसे अलग अलग मान्यताएं गुणों के बारे में है, गुण संस्कार के फलस्वरूप हो सकता है, परंतु संस्कार उन लोगों की विचार प्रक्रिया से निकला हुआ नवनीत है जिन्होंने इस जीवन को एक यात्रा के तौर पर देखा है, एक प्रक्रिया के तौर पर देखा है। इस सृष्टि, परमेष्टि और व्यक्ति के बीच में एक अनकहा रिश्ता देखा है लोगों ने, और उसको साधने के लिए व्यक्ति के लिए खास तरीके से उसे तैयार करना होता है। इसके लिए संस्कार की आवश्यकता बताई। 16 संस्कारों की बात है। और मजे की बात यह है कि कुछ लोग इसे जाति में देखते हैं, खांचों में देखते हैं, परंतु ये जाति मूलक नहीं है, ये वर्ग मूलक भी नहीं है। और समाज को एक खास प्रक्रिया के लिए तैयार करने वाली ये ऐसी चीज है जो प्रायोजन मूलक है, काम के लिए तैयार करना। जैसे एक बड़ा काम करना है इस धरती पर आकर, उसके लिए तैयार करने के लिए आपको संस्कार की जरूरत है। जैसे एक बड़ा ऑपरेशन होना है तो उसके लिए औजारों को तैयार किया जाता है, वरना दिक्कत हो सकती है। अगर इस व्यक्ति यहां पर आता है और तैयार नहीं है तो वो समाज में कुछ ऐसी दिक्कत पैदा कर सकता है कि बाकी सबको परेशानी हो सकती है, ये पूरी यात्रा बाधित हो सकती है। संस्कार इसी नाते मैं देखता हूं कि संस्कार प्रायोजन मूलक हैं, व्यक्ति को अलग अलग पड़ावों के लिए तैयार करते हैं, समाज के साथ जोड़ते हैं, और व्यक्ति का विकास करते हुए भी समाज के साथ वो एकात्म कैसे हो सकता है, एक बड़े एकात्म भाव की पुष्टि कैसे हो सकती है। संस्कार ये काम करते हैं। मेरी दृष्टि में संस्कार यही है।
I don't know if we have, I was very keen to ask all of you a question each, but I don't know if we have the time. What I'm going to try and do is ask one maybe short question to each one of you, and then see if we have time to take a couple of questions from the audience. Perhaps I'll start with you, Arundhati, only because you are in my line. I'm not singling you out. And I ask you this, you've written on Buddhism, and you've written wonderfully on Buddhism. And I was thinking about Buddhism yesterday a lot, because the two sessions I had at JLF, one is of course this one, and the other one was Ambedkar's legacy yesterday. And I was thinking about both sessions simultaneously, and it occurred to me that one of the claims that Ambedkar makes is that equality and fraternity and in fact democratic principles are not derivatives of Western ideology for him. And he talks about how they are in fact the sanskars of this country and of Buddhism, and that's where he gets them from. And that's of course when we're talking about the sanskar of the nation as a whole. But you've also written about Buddhism in a sort of personal, sacred, spiritual way. I was wondering if you'd like to talk about that a little bit. Buddhism also has the concept of sankhar.
I think my own entry point into that book on Buddhism was in fact related to exactly what you mentioned, the fact of the figure of the Buddha as an unlicensed seeker who tells us that we don't need a license in order to belong, that we can in fact ask the questions that are our birthright to ask, that no one confers that birthright upon us. So to me, that idea of the unlicensed seeker has been inspirational, really. That we don't have to be card-carrying members of any spiritual elite in order to ask those questions. But when we come to the concept of sankhara in Buddhism, it's really a subjective propensity, in a sense, the way the Buddhists would understand it in the way that I understand the Buddhists. All right, so we're talking at many removes. I position myself as a seeker and as a poet, where this is concerned. It is an idea of a certain propensity, a certain predisposition, but it is imbued with the Buddhist idea, which is fundamental, the Buddhist idea of impermanence. So none of these sankharas, none of these predispositions can be frozen, ossified, or they should not be. They are intended, in fact, the ultimate aim is to dissolve them entirely. But the Buddha, like every great guru and mystic, tells us that as long as you have them, you can use them to unmake yourself. It's like using the same thorn to pull out the other, using another thorn to pull out the one that you have. So the Buddha at the time of his enlightenment famously said, "House builder, you are seen, you will not build your house again." So a new set of sankharas is not going to be built. But you have the choice, as long as you ride the cycle, you have the choice not to be crushed by it. You can ride it. That's the empowering potential of Buddhism.
The wonderful thing about this discussion is, even though it is so vast and so, sort of dispersed, there's so many linkages between what each of you is saying, and in fact what you were talking about brought me back to what Makarand was talking about, as sanskar as a sort of evolutionary idea, as a sort of negotiator, a wonderful phrase that you use between modernity and tradition. I'm very intrigued by that idea, because it sounds wonderful, but there are also many follow-up questions that I have, and how we sort of walk that, how does one walk that path, and what Hitesh was saying, how do you reconcile individualistic negotiation between many different influences and building our own sanskars with what society requires us and demands of us. Any quick thoughts on that? I feel awful that I'm basically asking all these vague, elusive questions and asking you to answer them in 1 minute or 30 seconds, but please, if you'll indulge me.
Yes, Pragya, it was a bit, I was wrapping my head around it, but I have talked about some of this in the book that we're going to launch, which is debating the post-condition in India. In other words, and this links up with your question about Dr. Ambedkar, which is that modernity also has its samskars. And then the things that Hiteshji also said, which is really the segue to some of the contentious issues of our times, which is that this whole idea of samskar and samskaran is not just about individuals, but entire societies have samskars. And you see, when you want to control a particular society, or even if you want to sell them something, you have to create the conditions, you know, to make those products attractive to those people. So, for example, if you are a society in which the samskar is not to consume, how do you break that? You break it by bringing in the idea of carpe diem, not transience, seize the day, juice life, to sort of twist what Alka said about jouissance. So what I'm trying to say is that colonialism, for example, was based on a kind of, you know, samaj todo samskar. You see, how do you break a society which has very deep notions of you know, an axiology, you know, karma, dharma, whatever these things are. Out of the 16 samskaras, 3 or 4 become really important, right? So you do it, suppose you want to open fire on unarmed protesters in Punjab, in Jallianwala, in 1919. We all know about General Dyer, but who are the people who opened fire? Do you know? Yeah? Gurkhas, they were Gurkhas, right? So this is how this whole thing worked. When I was in China, some people told me, they said, you know, we were also under a colonial power, colonial influence, but we never got recruited by any of our colonial, you know, interveners, including the Japanese. So Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, and some of the other people, they never fought for European powers, but Indians were the best mercenaries. Look at how many people from the subcontinent died in the First World War. Yesterday there was a play on it. So Sikh soldiers fought in Mesopotamia, Pathans fought, Gurkhas fought, you know, the Madras sappers and miners were fighting somewhere, the Mahar regiment. So this is how they created this system. And now we're trying to build India. So you need another set of samskars now, you know, some kind of Desh Jodo samskar, you know, which really brings me to this idea of the unlicensed, you know, seeker. Now, these very figures have become so licensed and so controlled, you see, whether it's the Buddha or Dr. Ambedkar. And in their name, look at all the things that are happening in our country. What kind of samskars are being provided? Now, to wrap it all up, since we want to hear everybody speak, what I'm really trying to say is that just as individuals are on an evolutionary path, so are societies. Right? And Sri Aurobindo famously said that every nation has a soul. And I think the challenge for us in India now is to, you know, from the debris of this wounded or lost or fallen civilization, how to start manifesting our native genius. And as you rightly said, Dr. Ambedkar wanted to find the native sources of rationality. Because in the Mahar Satyagraha, he referred to the French Enlightenment. But later when he wrote the Buddha and his Dhamma, he said that in your own land, you have sources of rationality, equality, fraternity. And I think this is the broader challenge for us. How to rebuild and revitalize the samskaras of this land, because it is only in that ambience and ecosystem that even the samskara of individual liberation, which comes either at the end of a life, well-lived, a dharmic life, or it can happen like this, as the Vigyan Bhairav would tell you, 108 ways of instant liberation. These things become meaningful, valuable, only in an ecosystem where they're respected. Thank you.
Hitesh, very quickly, आपने जो मकरंद जी कह रहे थे, what emerges, one question that emerges out of that is, you as somebody who subscribes to RSS's principles and has been a close observer of the RSS, a lot of RSS's work has been in the area of trying to build a consensus around sanskar when it comes to society, when it comes to a nation. Can you talk a little bit about that, and where does that leave room for what Arundhathi was talking about, of us belonging to a faith that we are free to interpret and free to question?
देखिए, संघ के संस्कार की जो आपने बात की, 16 संस्कार जो हैं ये उससे अलग आपको गिनना पड़ेगा कि 16 शास्त्रोक्त सनातन संस्कार हैं, उनका जिक्र मिलता है। संघ की स्थापना तो 1925 में हुई, परंतु एक बड़ी स्पष्ट बात वो लेकर चले, और वो क्या है कि राष्ट्रीय सांस्कृतिक अस्मिता के संरक्षण का संस्कार। हमें क्या करना है कि इस राष्ट्रीय अस्मिता का संरक्षण करना है। आज अगर आप दक्षेश की बात करें या और बदलते सिनेरियो में जिस सॉफ्ट पावर की बात कर रहे हैं, वो भारत की सांस्कृतिक ताकत ही थी। उस देश की ताकत को पहचानना, उसको जानने का एक तरीका विकसित करना और कुछ ऐसे लोग तैयार करना जो उस गौरव को दोबारा से लोगों के मन में बिठा सकें और उसके लिए काम करके खुद को प्रस्तुत कर सकें। तो मुझे लगता है संघ का संस्कार वो है। उसमें एक जो बड़ी बात थी कि एक ध्येय बड़ा रखो। अगर हम 3 चरणों में देखें कि एक तो ध्येय बड़ा रखो, लक्ष्य अपने सामने रखो। तो लक्ष्य रखा एक सांस्कृतिक अस्मिता का, फिर उसके लिए एक प्रारूप या एक तरीका आपके पास होना चाहिए। तो संघ की शाखा का एक तरीका निकाला कि शाखा लगाएंगे, और वहाँ पर तीसरी चीज़ जो निकली कि वहाँ पर आने वाले लोग, समाज परिवर्तन होता है व्यक्ति परिवर्तन से। व्यक्ति तैयार होंगे तो समाज परिवर्तन होगा, समाज परिवर्तन होगा तो देश का परिवर्तन होगा। तो मैं इन तीनों कड़ियों को इस तरह से जोड़ के देखता हूँ, और यही मैं कहूँगा संघ का मूल संस्कार। अगर कहें तो 90 वर्ष से तो हम देख रहे हैं कि इस संस्कार पर काम करते हुए, शाखा के माध्यम से काम करते हुए एक संगठन आज विश्व का सबसे बड़ा संगठन बना है।
Not only is this very tough for speakers, and it's a very, very tough job as a moderator because I have so many follow-up questions, but I'm going to restrain myself. What I would like you to talk about, Alka ji, very quickly, because you spoke wonderfully about sanskar, transitioning from the intangible to the tangible. I wanted you to talk a little bit about the intangible influences on sanskar. When we talk about sanskar, we very often talk about the concrete, what is definable. We talk about scriptures, we talk about morality, we talk about things that we can express in words. But when it comes to what Arundhathi calls our inheritance, there's a large part of our inheritance which is cultural, which is intangible, which is music, which is poetry, perhaps, which can also be partly intangible. It's art. And these intangible inheritances have the power to influence us and create sanskars within us, which may be very difficult to sum up in words. If, as somebody who's worked in the cultural sphere for as long as you have, is there something you'd like to say about that, please?
प्रज्ञा, आपने तो एक सवाल में मतलब इतना कुछ पूछ लिया
I
कि
apologize.
कहाँ से शुरू करें और कहाँ से मतलब because it's lateral and linear at the same time. But as I said, जैसे मैंने पहले भी आपको कहा कि जो essence है, you know, there's a huge diverse view, और यही चीज़ हमारे Indic wisdom की एक बहुत ही ज़्यादा speciality है, that there are multiple meanings and multiple interpretations to that same dhwani, the same sound. And again, I will go back to the, in a way, the essence of sanskar. In my view, it is very, very specific. अब आप performing arts की बात करें या visual arts की बात करें, I think कला के संस्कार, मैं तो इंद्र सभा में जाऊंगी, मैं तो अप्सरा और गंधर्वलोक में चली जाऊं, क्योंकि वहाँ के जो संस्कार हैं उनकी एक यात्रा अलग ही है। हर संस्कार की यात्रा अलग है। Because if you look at people who are in business, their sanskars are different, their DNA is different, and the people, अगर आप देखेंगे कि how many people from rags to riches होते हैं, सब नहीं होते हैं, and you will see lots of people of big business houses and corporates, once they've made their money, उनके संस्कार चाहे अर्थ के तरफ ही हों, पर उनके बच्चे अर्थ में नहीं जाते. The sanskars can be of a throwback of an ancestor. So I do think that जो संस्कार की जो एक यात्रा है, जिसका आप कह रही थी कि आर्टिस्टिक यात्रा क्या है, उसके एक अलग ही संस्कार हैं. There's a different gene pool of those sanskars. Yeah, and if you look at every craft, if you look at every profession, the people who are going into it, जैसे जीन पूल की टाइप कास्टिंग करते हैं या डीएनए की करते हैं, आप वो देखेंगे जो कला में जा रहे हैं उनके संस्कार की अगर आप जेनोटाइपिंग करेंगे ना, वो एक तरह की अलग ही होगी. सो इन अ वे इट वर्क्स इन अ वेरी ऑर्गेनिक मैनर. पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी, इट मे नॉट बी दैट म्यूजिशियन का बच्चा कोई, जैसे मैं मीता पंडित से बात कर रही थी, शी सेड शी इज़ द 6th जनरेशन ऑफ द ग्वालियर घराना, जो कि एक आदि घराना है, और जस्ट लकी दैट वो 6 घराने चलता रहा. नहीं तो आप अगर आप देखेंगे कलाकारों के बच्चे कॉर्पोरेट्स बन रहे हैं. So where are the sanskars going? They are getting lost in the cosmos. But if you kind of आप उनका आवाहन करेंगे or you call out to them and it is in your gene pool, you can reach out to them. So I feel संस्कार का tangible और intangible का जो becoming है, that's the complicated space.
We'll have to leave it at that. We have 20 minutes left. Okay, so maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions and then we can, Makarand can talk a little bit about his book. Well, since you're the first person to have.
Hello. So I have 2 questions from Makarand and Hitesh ji. So in the session of Sagrika Ghosh, they said that whatever anyone do in the private life, like examples like Lady Mountbatten and the Nehru and all, कुछ भी करें किसी की भी प्राइवेट लाइफ में, इट इज़ ओके, और उससे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ना चाहिए. अगर इतने बड़े लेवल पर जाकर के प्राइवेट लाइफ में कोई भी फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता है, कुछ भी करा जाए, तो फिर उन संस्कारों की ज़रूरत नीचे तक किस तरीके से आएगी. वंस एंड द अदर वन इज़ कि सर हिंदुस्तान में हज़ारों फिल्में बनते हैं हर साल में, और हज़ारों किताबें भी प्रकाशित होती हैं, लेकिन अगर किसी किताब का या फिल्म का किसी भी कारण से बैन हो जाता है या वॉट एवर क्रिटिसिज्म होता है, तो देखा गया है कि उसके लिए इतने जस्टिफिकेशंस दे दिए जाते हैं, उसे इतना महत्वपूर्ण बना दिया जाता है कि लगता है कि वो राष्ट्रीय पुरस्कार के लायक थे और उन्हें बैन कर दिया गया. क्या ये सब नॉर्मल है या आप इसमें किसी विशेष समूह का संचालन या ऐसा कुछ और देखते हैं?
Which one do you want to?
देखिए, ऐसा है, पहला सवाल तो मेरे लिए बहुत दिलचस्प है, क्योंकि उसमें ये है, आप जो प्रश्न पूछ रहे हैं उसमें ये है कि मेरी निजी ज़िंदगी में क्या मैं जवाबदेही हूँ समाज के प्रति, है ना. तो हमारे परंपरा में इसका जवाब दिया है. तो मैं अंग्रेज़ी में 2 लफ्ज़ में कहूँगा, इट इज़ द डिफरेंस बिटवीन एन आइडियोलॉग एंड एन एग्जाम्पलर. एग्जाम्पलर इज समबडी हु सपोज्ड टू हैव एन एक्सुरता बिटवीन विचार, आचार और अनुभव. अनुभव से निर्माण होता है ये व्यक्ति, है ना. लेकिन मॉडर्निटी में उनमें विरोधाभास हो सकता है, बिकॉज दे आर आइडियोलॉग्स, दे मे प्रीच वन थिंग और अपनी ज़िंदगी में बिल्कुल विपरीत आप पाएंगे. और यही अगर हमें कॉन्ट्रास्ट करना हो, लुक एट द डिफरेंस बिटवीन गांधी एंड नेहरू. वट एवर गांधी डिड, ही डिड इन द ओपन. ही इवन कन्फेस्ड. उनकी जो ऑटोबायोग्राफी थी उसमें उन्होंने बताया भी मैंने क्या क्या किया, और बाद में भी उनके जो प्रयोग रहे, यू मे डिसएग्री विद देम, बट वो सो खुलेआम थे, बंद दरवाजे के पीछे नहीं थे. बट नेहरू वॉज अ मॉडर्न पर्सन एंड ही डिस्टिंग्विश्ड हिज प्राइवेट लाइफ, यू नो, फ्रॉम हिज पब्लिक पर्सोना. नाउ आई थिंक दोनों चीज़ें चलती हैं भारत में आज. पारंपरिक भी लोग मिलेंगे आपको, पारदर्शिता उनकी लाइफ में दिखेगी आपको. And there are modern people who will say, no, my private life is none of your business. And I think we should respect both. And the last thing I want to say is, some people who claim to be paramparik are not. If you really see what their lives are, they are so rotten. So ये सारे reversals हो रहे हैं. It's a part of the game. But let's not be binary. But I can only tell you, parampara की जो transmission होती है, that is done through exemplars. I mean, I can't be talking about enlightenment if I have no anubhav. Nobody in India, it won't work. Hindustan mein to nahi chalega ye. So we still look to exemplary figures to show us what embodied tradition is. Hai na? Now the second question about bans, I'm completely against banning books, movies. I'm also completely against private senas, armies, associations, all of which are a part of a democratic society, which mediate between individual citizens and the state. I'm all for associations, But I'm against associations taking the law into their own hands. ये modern democracy में नहीं चलेगा. लेकिन हमारी soft state है, we are so afraid of vote bank politics, तो we should be a dharmic society, that जो गलत है वो गलत ही है, चाहे कोई भी करे. We can't do this dogli rajniti, you know. So I'm making my position very clear on this. Thank you.
जो मकरंद जी कह रहे थे, मकरंद जी का कहना था कि मैं उसमें कुछ बात जोड़ूं. ये दोगली राजनीति पर जो बात आई है या एक फिल्म का जो चर्चा आया है, मैं कहूँगा कि ये पहली बार नहीं है और दो तरीके का स्टैंड लेने की बात. ये इस इतने खुले हुए एक साहित्य के उत्सव में भी तस्लीमा नसरीन के आने पर कैसा हल्ला मचता है, या सलमान रश्दी, अब वो क्यों नहीं आएंगे? ये आवाज़ यहाँ से क्यों नहीं उठनी चाहिए? पद्मावती की चर्चा होगी, यहाँ से तस्लीमा नसरीन की बात नहीं होगी, सलमान रश्दी की बात नहीं होगी, करनी सेना की बात होगी, मगर आंधी फिल्म के लिए कैसी आंधी चली थी उसकी बात नहीं होगी. ये सही है क्या? या एक और किताब है जिसे आने से पहले ही रेड सारी रोक दिया गया. क्यों रोक दिया गया भाई? आने दीजिए ना. विचारों को जब कहते हैं कि 10 दिशाओं से आने दो, तो आने दो, घबराते क्यों हो? आ जाने दो. ये दोगलापन नहीं चलेगा.
The lady in front, please.
My question is primarily with Mr. Shankar, and Mr. Makarand can also add to it. What I feel right now, we have a politics or a culture of convenience. I'm not talking about Jodha Akbar, I'm not talking about Padmavati, I'm not talking about Mr. Rashdi or anyone. You talked about Mr. Shankar, you talked about Sola Sanskar. And when it came about conserving Buddhism, you said ki we'll have to go across Sanskritic, Asmita, and etc. etc. So why do we have different stances for different things? When we are talking about Congress, we would point fingers. But when it is anything pertaining to BJP, Karni Sena, I'm an Indian, I'm a Rajasthani. I feel bad when Jodha Akbar, a wonderful movie, is banned. The entire world is seeing, but I cannot go to the screen and watch it.
जो आपने बात की उसमें मेरा यही कहना था, जो सबसे पहले कहा कि आप कंपार्टमेंटलाइजेशन नहीं कर सकते सोसाइटी का. या मकरंद जी ने भी जो कहा कि समाज जोड़ो संस्कार की आज हमें सबसे ज़्यादा आवश्यकता है. हम क्या करते हैं कि फ्रिंज की बात करते हैं, कौन था, कहाँ था, क्या था, जिसका कुछ नहीं पता है, मगर उसे राजनीतिक तौर पर किसी खास परिदृश्य में भुनाया जा सकता है, उसकी सारी चर्चा होती है. समाज क्या चाहता है उसकी चर्चा नहीं होती है. अगर हम संस्कार की बात करें, इसे वापस मैं वहीं पर लेकर आता हूँ, तो खाली ये इतना नहीं है कि 16 संस्कार में से एक संस्कार अन्नप्राशन का भी है. जब भीष्म शरसैया पर थे तो द्रौपदी ने पूछा कि, द्रौपदी उस समय हंसी, और द्रौपदी ने कहा, भीष्म ने पूछा कि तुम हंसी क्यों? तो उन्होंने कहा जब मेरा चीरहरण हो रहा था तब आप चुप थे, और आज आप यहाँ पर ज्ञान का उपदेश दे रहे हो, मुझे ये देखकर हंसी आई. भीष्म पिता मैंने कहा कि बेटी, मैंने उस समय दुर्योधन का अन्न खाया था, वो रक्त मेरे शरीर में प्रवाहित था, उस अन्न का कुछ प्रवाह तो मेरे ऊपर था. तो संस्कार कितने गहरे जाते हैं और कैसे कैसे काम कराते हैं, दो तरीके के काम भी करा लेते हैं. तो मुझे लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं ऐसे संस्कार रहे होंगे कि कुछ लोग दो तरीके के काम करते हुए दिखाई देते हैं.
No, I'll just add a footnote. I think he's answered very well. I think the intellectual should be principled, not convenient. But politicians and others who are compromised or who have already affiliated themselves, दो तरह के संस्कार आते हैं. अन्न दो तरह, you know, because नमक हराम, नमक हलाल, you know, ये सब होता है. But I want to say 16 संस्कार में, you know, दूसरा जो संस्कार है, it's called, I think it's called Pumsaman. Punsavan. So you have, that's to get a male child. So we have to abandon that, or we need another one to get a female child. In fact, when you think about Ashwapati, he wanted Savitri to be born, you see, because only she could save, so etc. So I'm saying we have to keep changing these things. We can't have them ossified. And I liked one of the things that Alka ji said, inka ahvan karna chahiye, you know, like if you want to do wicked things as well, look at what Lady Macbeth does. She says, unsex me here now. Because she said, I'm a mother, but I want to be ruthless. And she says that if I had a suckling baby, I would smash that baby's head on the floor. And then she makes her husband kill the king, whom they are also hosting. So there's a double violation of samskar there, you know. So, these things are there, inka ahvan karna padta hai. And, and even in our lives, I think there's so much unfolding as we, uncovering of layers upon layers. And only then we can actually see whether we really want that last of the Purusharthas of moksha. Thank you.
We have about a minute and a half. Are there any questions for either Arundhati or Alka ji? Does anyone have questions for them particularly? Would you, please?
So this is particularly for Alka. It's said good parents have good children, or that's what was said in my day and age. Does that still stand true? After all I've heard today, I'm a little bit confused on that.
That's again a very, very deep question. और उसमें भी मतलब it takes, I don't know if I'm only giving my very subjective view, but I don't think that good parents necessarily will have good children. Ravan was born of a great tapasvi father. उनके संस्कार कहीं बीच में कुछ ऐसे होंगे that he probably had to experience and do some closures somewhere. कोई parents इतने शैतान जिनको हम कह सकते हैं, that's again a very personal definition, और संत जैसे बच्चे पैदा कर लेते हैं, तो there is obviously again a huge kind of confusion. So I think this confusion will persist. There are no clear-cut answers. This is not like a scientific experiment that you mix two chemicals and the end result C plus O will bring CO2 kind of a thing. So these are very complex issues, and it is very often that sometimes, because हमारी संस्कृति में ये भी कहा जाता है कि पुराने कुछ हमें किसी का कुछ वापस भरना पड़ता है, and sometimes it is also said that your enemies are born as your children, क्योंकि इतना मोह होता है, इतना वो होता है, तो आपके दुश्मन आपके बच्चे के रूप में पैदा होते हैं और आपके संस्कार ये हैं कि आपको उनका वापस देना है. So these are very, very complex issues, and I don't think there is any one specific answer for it. Yes, it is over years, generations की ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि आपको जो आपने चाहा वही आपके साथ हुआ. संस्कार कुछ चीज़ ही ऐसी है.
Anything that you'd like to add, Arundhati?
Would you like to add?
Okay, on that note, we have Makarand is launching a book today that he spoke about a little bit earlier. I'd like to invite Shapun Das Gupta, if he's here in the audience, to please join us and unveil the book, and of course ask Makarand to tell us a little bit about the book. Is Mr. Das Gupta here? Oh, there he is.
मैंने भी अभी देखी है, यानी एक दो प्रतियां ही आई हैं. It's just come, 20th of January it was released.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be releasing this book. Makarand has a awesome, formidable reputation as a very brave man. He's a very brave man because he chooses to get up in JNU and say the things which others don't like him to say. For that, I think he deserves a particular round of applause. And he's not afraid of being a conformist in some circles and a contrarian in other circles. And I think that really testifies to his independence of spirit, independence of mind. And I think all of us will look forward to his critique of postmodernism in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shobanda. Why don't you wait for 2 minutes? And Shobanda is also somebody I deeply admire for his clarity as well as his courage. You've seen him debating on television. He can hold his own in any forum with any adversary. In fact, last year, right here at JLF, the crowds were, you know, like this time, you know, thronging everywhere. There was no room to walk. And he was late for this Kohinoor session with William Dalrymple. And he walked in and, 15 minutes late, and he started speaking, and it was mesmerizing. And he hasn't read the book because I myself got the copies only a couple of days back. But the only thing I want to say two things. This morning, some of you were in the Tanjore panel, I think, which was brilliantly moderated by Arundhathi. And there was a wonderful presentation by Indira Peterson on the modernity of Tanjavur under Sarfoji, where he brought all these wonderful books from Europe. He had European tutors. He brought biomedical sciences, chemistry. What happened to that modernity? There was another moment a little before that in Bengal with Prince Dwarkanath. Blair Kling, K-L-I-N-G, has written a wonderful book on it. And Dwarkanath, who was, of course, Rabindranath's grandfather, was the richest man in the world at that time. He owned shipping lines. He got into the opium trade with China. He had mines. And he was feted in the courts of Europe. What happened to that capitalist moment in India? The only point I wanted to make is we often are told that the British brought modernity to India. I would like to say the British destroyed Indian modernity, which started in the late 18th century. And we had to reinvent it 100 years later with Jamshedji Tata talking about the history of Indian capitalism and Dadabhai Navroji, poverty and British rule in India. Similarly, when it comes to postmodernism in India, in a sense, needs to be interrogated, if not critiqued. And I think this is what my book does. I urge you to read it. It's a bit of an academic book, but thank you all for giving me this chance. And thank you, panelists. Thank you. And thank you, Pragya. Thank you, Shobanda.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you, and thank you for listening to us. Thanks very much.
Can we please give them a big round of applause over here to all our speakers, Alka Pande, Arundhathi Subramaniam, Hitesh Shankar,